Welcome to Breaking Kayfabe. I'm Saucy, and I'm here today with a new guest. You may know him as the current IIW UK champion. His name is Max Stone. And Max, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey, doing good. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. These Breaking Kayfabe shows have been a lot of fun, and I was excited when you were interested to be on here. So I can't wait to hear about the character. For folks who aren't familiar with Max, give us the elevator pitch. What do we need to know about him?
The elevator pitch is I used to do this a long time ago, and I took a very long break, about 15 years, and getting back into this character has basically been me getting reacquainted with the game and how much has changed, yet how much has stayed the same. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun being back into it. And this character has been a lot of fun to write. A lot of fun to write. It's been cool being part of like the community again and meeting a lot of really cool people. And yeah, sorry, this is the. I've never been interviewed before when I'm not like fighting for a job, so it's a little
Right.
new.
Well, you gave us a very vague description of just about every efed character. So tell me give me like three things that make Max unique. What are the things that set him apart from other characters?
I set him apart. So when I was thinking about coming back into this, it had been about 15 years. And I had really stopped when the Fed that I was in, it was called HWA, Honorable Wrestling Alliance. And it was run by a guy named Deadman. And that was a group of people I played with since probably late 99 off and on. So I was always kind of in the same circle with these people. And that Fed ended up just kind of dying, and the whole group, I don't know if they ever kept contact, but I fell out of that group and really fell out of Fedding until I came back recently. And so coming back, I was like, okay, I didn't even know if this was a thing still. I didn't know if this game existed. And I'd always wanted to come back and play a little bit, and I'd vaguely do some research. And no, I think e-fedding's all just like 2K feds now and whatnot. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, no,
And so,
I've got a similar story. I was efedding back in 2001, 2002, and then I took about 20 years off and came back in late 2021 and have had the same experience, not knowing how much it changed. But what I'm noticing is that the technology has changed. The forums are better, the video quality, the graphics are better. Twitter is an amazing thing. And now, of course, we've got, these podcasts, which, I think we're still trying to find what our niche is here. But as long as people keep watching the content, we'll keep making it.
absolutely. And that was one thing that kind of blew my mind when I came back too, because there was one podcast I was listening to, and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm driving in the car listening to like this fantasy world being talked about. And it's only really been something that exists on my computer. So just to see all of that kind of blossom into different forms of media has been really cool to see. And to your point, what you said about coming back like after 20 years, that seems to be the story of a lot of people I've talked to, especially like over in IIW. A lot of people who kind of rediscovered this hobby during like the pandemic when we were all stuck at home, and I guess reminiscing on better times. A lot of people kind of gravitated back towards this, and it seems like the whole hobby as a whole is really flourishing right now.
One of the things that really has blown my mind is the it's just the whole community aspect of it, where you've got people who are in multiple feds at the same time, and people kind of just bounce around from one place to another. So even though Max is in the IIW and handler's character is not, they may still know who you are. If they don't know you, they know who your friends are, who your opponents are. It's also for lack of a better word, incestuous, where everybody's related to everybody in one way or another. There's only a couple degrees of separation here, and that's especially with these forum feds where we're using these pick bases.
Yeah, definitely. It's been really interesting to see that everything's somehow connected to each other. I don't know if that's maybe because there's less people than used to play before, like in its heyday, but the people that are here are really into the connection and mingling around different feds and playing with others. So that's been really cool to see that I can go over to another fed and somebody would know who I am. And when 20 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Right. So you're just in IIW right now. Is that correct?
Correct. So when I was coming back, I was looking for places to play, and I was actually kind of giving up on my search because I wasn't sure if there really was anywhere else. And then I saw a Reddit post saying that the IIW was open for business, so I thought I would start at the very bottom and work my way back up.
Well, whatever you're doing seems to be working. I'm looking at your Twitter page now, and I'll tag that in the bio below. But you're a current champion. I can't make out who the pick base is. It looks like Remley from Game of Thrones. Am I way off base there?
No, you're very close. It's the guy who plays Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones. He's
Oh man, I was close.
the uncle. I think he's the uncle that comes in towards the end of it and causes a bunch of havoc.
So is that pretty accurate for your character? Or are they? Is he a havoc starter?
He can be at times, depending on which personality you get, because my story so far is that this is a guy who's basically cut in half, who is at war with himself. And I kind of came up with that when I was planning to come back. I wanted to do something a little different. I'm sure, I mean, the split personality thing's probably been done to death, but I was really trying to figure out when I was bringing this character back, like, what can I do that's a little different? Because I was looking around, people seem to be like, okay, this is my job. I'm a CEO of a company or I'm a hitman, but I'm also a wrestler. And so I wanted to kind of come up with a way for this guy to be all about being a wrestler. And the story I came up with is he has this whole alternate personality whose entire life is basically like the fictional version of a wrestler, and his ultimate goal in his existence is to become the best wrestler of all time. It's his whole purpose for existing, essentially.
So what you're describing, I think, is the same experience that everybody has in this hobby. It just he's living it a little bit more literally, right? It's one of the I was just talking to somebody else about this recently, but having characters that have this duality to them, where they have maybe a split personality, or sometimes you get writers who will have an alt character who's completely opposite of their main character. You know, or in some cases, people just play the character that they wish that they could be in real life. That seems to be a really common trope in efetting. So to have that be written into the character I think, is something that people will connect with really quickly. The only issue is that you run that risk of going, oh, well, this sounds just like this other character who also has a split personality, and he's just ripping them off. But
this is true. When I started off doing this, I wasn't aware of any other characters who were doing a similar storyline. Since I've kind of branched out and been reading different people's work, I'm not the only one doing it, but that is okay. And
you're going to see that people have been fedding for 30 years now. So every story that can be told has been told by somebody at some point. And on top of that, you have to add in the IRL stories. And there really isn't a whole lot of ideas that haven't been done in one way or another before. So it's just a matter of what's the current story, and are have people bought into it? You know, so tell me what's the current story with Max? What's going on? Um, in what's going on with him right now?
So right now, he is the UK champion of the IIW. Won that title from Fred Debonair, who I believe is one of the best out there. Everything that I've got to work with him on has just been awesome, and there's more coming. I will hint at that. Um, so right now, Max is in war with the Mecha faction of IIW, which is you got the corrupt general manager Sean Hart, who has taken an iron fist control over the federation, and it's good guys versus bad guys. But right now, those dastardly Mecha bastards, they hold all the titles and all the power. And so it's kind of an anti-authority storyline, but he's the good guy at the moment. And when I had my original run way back in the day, there wasn't much depth to this character at all. He was almost like a John Cena ripoff, like rah rah, good guy, come out, oh, I'm a good guy, let's have an honorable fight. And I wanted to do something different this time. I wanted to add depth to him, and that's when I kind of came up with the split personality thing. And as I was going through IIW, the way my matches were being written and the storylines were going is that Max was once again becoming the big baby face of the company. And I hadn't planned on being a good guy. I wanted to be a heel and talk trash, but the story was kind of progressing that this big bad group was forming and it needed a big good guy to fight against it. And so that's where the split personality thing became really interesting to me, because I could have one side be the heel and one side be the face, so I could have my cake and eat it too.
Sure. Is he aware that he's the good guy in this scenario, or does he still think that he's sneaky and dastardly and capable of terrible things?
So the good half of him really resents the bad half because he's been with him his entire life, due to some childhood neglect, being left alone as a poor child, and he's basically an imaginary friend that's became another half of him. And so I wouldn't say the maniac side is what I call him. I wouldn't say he's inherently evil, but he's more willing to do whatever it takes to hit their goal of becoming the best wrestler of all time.
Yeah, I think that you're just describing a face character, right? Because it would take a face to realize that there are negative things about themselves that they don't like and they need to work on. You know, a face character has flaws, admits them, and tries to work on them. Whereas a heel is just incapable of acknowledging any flaws in their game. They're wholly consumed by their ego and feel justified in everything that they do. So for Max to feel like he needs to change his ways, there's things about him that he needs to suppress. To me, that just sounds like the classic struggle of maybe the anti-hero, but it sounds like it's more intriguing than just the cool heel character. So hopefully people appreciate that.
Yeah, and so when I was coming back in, like I had no idea, like, am I still good at this? Can I still do this? But we're gonna give it a shot anyway. And one thing that was really, really important to me when starting back up with this character is that a lot of people want to write extensions of themselves or who they wish they could be. And when you kind of fall into that trap, you don't ever want to show your character as having any flaws or being incapable of anything that isn't just your best at all the time. So I wanted to write a character who's flawed. He's a little bit older, like athletic older. He's in his 40s. I mean, that's still relatively young, but for an athlete who's basically been out of the game for 15 years, this is him coming back in and trying to realize how he can do this again. And I was lucky enough to, have some really good opponents to kind of work my way up and realize that, yeah, I think I could do this again. And that's where more ideas started coming for the character, twists and turns, and had a lot of really fun matches and some great rivalries so far.
How do you like the word counts at IIW? It's what, two role plays unlimited?
Two role plays unlimited, yeah. I like it depends on what I want to do. Sometimes I'll tend to maybe do like one really story heavy one and then one more of like a shoot promo. It really depends where my story is because I know how this all ends. Like I'm working towards an ending right now, and you're all actually really going to see where this particular story ends really soon. It's going to be wrapped up in a couple months here, and then so I have a whole outline of where this is going and how I can get there. And then cycle by cycle, I take my what I know about my opponent and what I know about from what I just came from, and I start to kind of guide my story that way. So one important question I ask every time I'm going to do a role play is where's his mind at right now? What's bothering him? What's making him happy? I kind of go through this checklist of his emotions and to kind of get up his mental makeup before I start to actually write. And then I find that when you do that, like the role play almost kind of writes itself. And so to answer your question, the word count, it really just depends with how much I need to accomplish in this particular cycle. Sometimes I'll be writing and writing and writing, and I'll look and I'm at 2,500 words. Sometimes I'll feel like I'm haven't been writing that long and I'm at 4,000.
I've had this conversation with a bunch of folks talking about what is their sweet spot when it comes to writing. How many words? Some folks, 2,000 words uh, is a novel. It's just so far beyond their comfort zone. And then there are other folks who say that they need at least 7,000 words to get out the story that they have in their head. It has to be a bit of a relief when you go unlimited that you get to tell whatever story you want, and you tell it to completion, and you feel like, you've gotten all the words out of yourself and onto paper. Whereas if you're in a fed that's 3,000 words, you've got to cut and polish, and every word counts. There's no fluff at all. It needs to be sharp. I don't know which way is more pressure, but I think that finding your comfort zone is what's most important. And for someone who's just coming back like yourself, you feel like you have a story you need to tell, and it seems to be working, right? You're having success with it so far. You're one of the top faces in the company. That's quite an accomplishment to get done in such a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, I just started back at this last August of 22, so not even a full year yet. And the story I set out to tell, I figured it would take about a year to tell, and I'm almost going to hit that to the date.
So what happens after that? I know you can't reveal what's going to happen there, but 6 months from now, is Max still wrestling? Is he still in the IIW? Has he moved on to other things? Where would you like to see yourself?
So storyline wise, the split personality thing's going to come to what I hope is a satisfying conclusion to everyone that's followed. And then the next big story begins with a certain golden ticket he's received.
There you go. So I'm not in the habit of self-promoting very much anymore, but I was flattered and excited to have Max show some interest in being in the World Series of Wrestling. And I think that you're going to find it's going to give you exposure that you may not have otherwise had, working with some people in other feds that you don't cross paths with very often. And it's going to be such a change of pace from what you normally get in the daily grind of the Fed world. So the responsibility is on me to provide thought provoking prompts and to help you explore this character in ways that you hadn't thought of before. We're going to have to see how it works out. It's all being made up as we go along, but it should be different from the normal experience. So I'm really happy to have you on board with that. And I hope that you enjoy it. So you'll have to let me know.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it and for everything that it's going to bring. A little bit about myself personally. I went to film school and I wanted to be a screenwriter. Ultimately, that never really materialized because when I wasn't getting writing prompts or anything, you sit down to start writing and there's nothing worse than just staring at a blank page. And so screenwriting kind of came and went. And then I was thinking that I really wanted to get into it again, but I didn't have that thing to kick me. And I was thinking, you know what would sound good is vetting again, because that's a story where you don't have to do all the work. You just have to roll with the punches and react to what's given to you. And so when I heard about this competition and what you have set up for something different every week, like that's right there in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, this is an unpopular opinion here, but I almost don't need the wrestling when it comes to fetting. It's competitive writing is all it is. Wrestling is just the premise. It's the stage that's been set to determine what the results are. But I kind of breeze through the actual technical maneuvers in the match. I just kind of look at the entrance and the finish, and the rest of it, while it's appreciated, and I know the match writers spend a lot of time working on the match philosophy, it's not quite as important to me. The stories are what I really love. So
Yeah,
it
I
makes
agree.
sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I try to challenge myself to do something different every cycle. Hopefully it translates, but there was one where we had a rumble and I was like, how am I going to shoot on 29 other people while I have to adhere to this 2,000 word limit? So this was in December. So I ended up writing a Christmas poem about every single competitor. And then there was another one. No, my most recent one was we did a War Games match. And I did an entire stage play parodying the entire war up to that point. Almost if you think about like the DX Nation of Domination promo, I basically did that with Fred and Jaymont and Sean Hart, and Kim Payne was involved in Xavier Lux, and that was a lot of fun to write.
You mentioned that you went to school for screenwriting. What was it that got you into that? What made you want to be a screenwriter?
I've always loved movies, and it really scratched the itch that I still had from when I stopped efetting. So in a way, it kind of lines up perfectly. Like my efed days died down right when my college was beginning and screenwriting was happening, and then that kind of dwindled away. But then getting back into efetting is making me interested in screenwriting again.
Are you familiar with the Splat Network and what they've been doing?
Somewhat. I haven't dug too deep into what they're doing, but I understand they're kind of closing up shop, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Splat is coming to an end here pretty soon. Uh, what they have, what they're known for, is creating dramatic content, movies, TV shows, in addition to some of the sporting contests that they have with the MMA and the wrestling and the roller derby. But they do exactly what you're talking about. They would cast wrestlers to be actors in these fictional movies that they would create. They would do posters and promotional content, and do some type of rudimentary video that um, kind of walked you through the story. Uh,
Oh, interesting.
so it just based on what you've said so far, there's an opportunity on the market for somebody to step up to do movie content, including wrestlers that are in the game. Splat did a great job with it for a long time, and they deserve so much credit. They've been so inspirational to so many people, and without them making that content, there's a huge void right now. It's sad to see them go, but it would be great if we had somebody with a screenwriting background kind of step in and say, "Yeah, why not? We're gonna put together a movie. You can try out for it." Those kind of extracurricular events add so much flavor to this hobby of just wins and losses. It's community collaboration is such a fun thing.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that's kind of blowing my mind right now is the ticket, the efed watcher.
Yes.
That is just awesome. I have no idea how they're doing that, but keep it up. It's great work, and it's really engaging and entertaining.
Well, now's probably a great time to give them some shine. I don't know if they watch our content here, but what they're doing is really good, right? It's maybe they have a website that can kind of generate some of this for them, but I can tell you from experience, there's still a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes, and
Absolutely.
if that's all being done by one person, I mean, they deserve so much credit for that. I wish we knew which wrestlers they handle because there's no way that this is their first exposure to the community. Um, they're also very funny, right? So
Yep.
it takes time to write that stuff. It takes time to produce it and put together the graphics. Uh, I at the rate that they're making content, I don't imagine they can keep it up for very long because it's so good, and that's a compliment to
Absolutely.
what they're doing. Is that it feels like this can't last forever. I'm just so happy when I watch it now. It's so good. I love that kind of stuff, and it really feels like a gift, you know. Um, but we will see if they stick around. There's a few other groups like that are around, like Arcadia is another one, and Triad is the new one that just dropped this week. So, um, love these projects that people come up with.
Yeah, definitely. You had asked me a minute ago about the word count. So, what is your preferred word count for when you're role playing?
Oh, well, I have stopped competitive role playing because I found that, I mean, it's been a lot of pressure on me. That the wins are really tough on me, I'm sorry, the losses are really tough, and the wins I feel really bad for my opponent. Like I feel guilty about winning. But when I do write, I like to write somewhere between 3 and 4,000 words. That seems to
Okay.
be that's where I've always written in the feds that I've done. I could see myself in a micro fed doing somewhere between 1 and 2,000 words, and that would be like super casual and I think more fun. But there are so many good writers in this game that will get 3,000 words and just kill it. Right? They do the research. They they are entertaining. The characters are so strong, and they have a legacy that follows them. A history of championships and wins over big names. It's really competitive right now. People like yourself who've been doing this for 20 years. People who are professionally trained writers and uh, have educational backgrounds in screenwriting and doing some of these other professions. Like it's ultra competitive, and I'm just so super impressed by everybody who's in this hobby. So um, I think you should be proud of what you've done, especially after being away from it for so long, figuring it out and kind of faking it until you made it, and now here you are.
Exactly. What you said about losses was interesting to me because I'm actually thankful for the losses I've had because when I first started off doing the IIW, I was slowly unfolding that he is a split personality and there's another side to him. So if you go back and read old things, you'll notice that things are a little off. There's scenes he's talking to himself in a mirror that's never really explained. And so I was slowly unfolding that. And one gimmick I kind of came up with was did you watch the last season of Stranger Things?
Sure.
Sure. So they had that ticking clock. It's like every time somebody's killed, an hour is going to go up on the clock.
Okay.
And I'll be the first to admit, I just completely stole that and I brought it into wrestling.
Okay.
And Fred actually called me out on that, and I was happy he did because I was going to do a storyline of how he stole it from Stranger Things, but I figured we need to go down that route. But so when I started off, I kind of set this goal that, okay, this clock's going to go up with every opponent that's defeated. And when I hit 12, something big's going to happen. And I started talking about it in the role plays like 12 o'clock's coming, 12 o'clock's coming. Oh man, it's going to be so crazy when 12 o'clock hits. And I had no idea what was going to happen at 12 o'clock. I was just
Right.
doing it to keep people engaged, and I thought it was a fun gimmick. And so I figure 12 opponents beaten on a 2 week cycle. This will take about 6 months. I'll have time to figure it out. And we're coming up about 3 months in, and Max has had a fatal four way. He's had two triple threats. He's had a tag team match. And I'm like, oh no, I'm like 2 months into this thing and I'm about to hit 12 o'clock. And I don't know what I want to do. And so I had finally figured it out. And I'm about to hit 12 o'clock. And I'm role playing like, oh, okay, cool. This is going to be great. 12 o'clock's finally here. And I lose my first match.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dang, okay. I lost to Jaymont, and I let him know about it every time I have a chance. And
Hey,
so I'm like, it's okay. We'll get him again. And that's when that rumble was happening that I was telling you about. All right, it's cool. 12 o'clock's going to happen when I win this rumble. It'll be even better because I beat 29 other people to finally hit 12 o'clock. I came in second place to Jaymont again.
right.
And so I'm like, okay, I've teased this 12 o'clock thing way too many times and it kind of fizzled out, but it allowed me to take my story onto a new path that I'm got really excited about. And that's when Max was really starting to gain traction as a babyface. And so I kind of started the struggle of like, this guy really wants to be a baby face, but he doesn't really know how to be anymore. And he's got this other side fighting against him. And that's been more satisfying to write than what would have happened if I would have hit that 12 o'clock thing and won those matches.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that I've witnessed in efetting is as a writer who's telling a long term story, you make these promises about what's going to happen at the end of this arc, and you build tension along the way. And in order for it to come to fruition, like this, not only do you have to follow through with it, but you have to get lucky, right? You have to actually win the big match in order for it to be satisfying. So when it doesn't, you just kind of have to go like, let's just forget about that. Let's repackage and restart this new arc. Um, and that's been really tough to do for me personally, but I think a lot of people probably go through that same experience of, oh yeah, forget about the clock. We're on to something else now. That was just for that pay-per-view block. Um, but
Yeah, definitely. And that's just the big part of why I wanted to do this again is that the path is not clearly defined by me. Like there's external factors that are coming in and influencing the things that I'm writing and the story that I'm telling. And ultimately, where I'm at right now in this story, I had planned to get to this point, but the path to get there has just been so much better than it was when I was sitting here making an outline.
yeah,
And that's due to all the people I get to play with, all the people I get to make stories with, and those around me who are influencing, and I'm really, really happy with where my story's gone and where it's going. And I can guarantee you, I think there's one part of this story that people from outside of the Fed are going to be really surprised about.
Well, Max, I can't wait for it, but I think we need to wrap it up here soon. I think you have a
Sure.
great attitude about e-fedding in general. What we need are about 2 dozen more people just like you to come back after being away for 20 years and are just ready to just try out some things, you know? Um, I wish that I had the same optimism and just energy for the game right now because I think that I mean, it just sounds like you're having a lot of fun. And I think anybody would want to have that same experience. So hopefully things keep working out for you and the IIW treats you well. I hope you get that win over J Munt, that son of a bitch. He deserves to take a loss every now and then.
Such a jerk.
Right, right. My kid, J Mont's actually a really nice guy. He checks in
Oh,
on
yeah.
me every once in a while, and he's been very supportive of our projects here. So, Max, before we go, I want to give you the stage. Is there anybody you want to shout out to or any other projects that we need to bring up before we go?
Yeah, actually, I will shout out Jaymont because as much crap as we talk about each other on Discord, yeah, he's a great dude. And then working with Fred has just been completely awesome. He's game to do anything just to tell a good story, and he'll put up a hell of a role play battle. Um, Shout out the IIW staff, Ash and Sean, for reaching out to me on Reddit and bringing me in and making me realize that this game does still exist and it is thriving.
Well, we couldn't do it without handlers like yourself. So keep doing what you're doing. So
Thank you.
on
One more
behalf,
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, 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 go ahead.
Yeah, you had mentioned having fun, and that's important to me too, because at the end of the day, it's all about having fun. And from my perspective, looking on Twitter and stuff, there's a lot of people who seem to not be having fun. And I think everyone just kind of needs a reminder that this is a game. It's fun. It's not always going to go your way, but if you're not having fun, maybe you should step away from it and make you realize what's fun about it and what do you love about it. And then maybe you could come back with a fresher attitude.
You know, I couldn't say it any better. That's gonna be it for tonight. We got to run. So on behalf of the handler of Max Stone and on behalf of the Sauce Boss here at This Is Awesome Promotions, you find what makes you happy and you find a way to make it fun again. Everybody be excellent to each other, and we'll catch you again next time on the show.
Bye.